What if I told you that rocking a fitted cap sideways on you damn near any day of the week was once a symbol of protest? You probably look at me like I'm crazy, but it's true. And that's just one example of how hip-hop fashion has influenced us all. We want to talk about that today, starting with the birth of hip-hop fashion in the late 70s, the symbolic meaning behind some of its most iconic pieces, and how it went from an expression of Black and Latino youth culture to a multi-billion-dollar industry. Welcome to our channel. This is a Dueling Concepts deep dive. Today we are breaking down the biggest moments in hip-hop fashion history. So hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments what your favorite hip-hop fashion moment is. Let's get into it. The year is 1978. DJ Kool Herc is throwing a back-to-school party in the Bronx when he decides to separate the MC and the DJ roles for the very first time. What started as a hobby quickly turned into one of the biggest music and cultural movements of all time. As hip-hop grew throughout the early 80s, so did its own unique style. The music was a reflection of the everyday life experiences of marginalized communities in New York City and beyond, and the fashion was no different. It was a way for people to express themselves and show pride in their heritage while also adapting and customizing clothing to fit their active street lifestyles. Sneakers became a symbol of status within the community. Adidas Superstar and Puma suede models were popular choices because they were affordable, durable, and already had a reputation as street shoes. But it was the Chuck Taylor All-Star that would go on to be the most recognizable sneaker in hip-hop history. In the song Rapper's Delight, the Sugar Hill Gang rapped about wearing Chucks, cementing their place in the new culture. Gold chains were another item that became synonymous with hip-hop fashion. For many, they were more than just a symbol of wealth or success. They were a symbol of Black excellence and pride. And who could forget the fitted cap worn sideways? It was a playful nod to the old-school ways of wearing hats while also being a symbol of resistance against the mainstream. But this is where things get interesting. As hip-hop grew in popularity, so did the desire of larger corporations to profit off its culture. In the late 80s and early 90s, companies like Tommy, Guest, and Carl Kangle began using hip-hop artists in their advertisements, and some even began using hip-hop-inspired imagery in their branding. Now this is where we have to ask ourselves, is this cultural appropriation or appreciation? On one hand, these brands were profiting off of a culture that was created by marginalized groups who had historically been denied access to mainstream markets. On the other hand, they were helping to bring hip-hop culture to a wider audience and making it more acceptable for people outside of those communities. One could argue that without these collaborations, hip-hop fashion may not have become as popular as it did. However, it is important to remember that these collaborations often came with little to no credit or compensation to the artists involved. Many of these artists felt that their culture was being exploited, and they began to push back against these corporations. Public Enemy Chuck D famously called out Adidas for using Run DMC in their commercials without giving them any money, and Cool J responded to criticism about wearing Kangle hats by saying, "I don't care if I'm selling out. I'm selling out to make music, period." This tension between selling out and staying true to the roots of hip-hop fashion continues to this day. On one side, you have luxury brands like Gucci and Prada, who've been accused of appropriating Black culture for profit. On the other side, you have hip-hop artists like Kanye West and Sean Combs, who've built their own fashion empires. In the mid-90s, rap began to take over the airwaves, and with it, the fashion followed. Oversized clothing became a staple of hip-hop style, particularly among East Coast rappers like the Notorious B.I.G. and Puff Daddy. They wore baggy jeans and oversized jackets and jewelry, sometimes with their own logos. This style was a departure from the athletic wear that had dominated hip-hop fashion in the 80s, and it signified a new era of hip-hop. The music was getting more explicit, and the fashion was following suit. But this new style wasn't just about making a statement. It was also practical for the lifestyle of a rapper. Baggy clothes allowed for more freedom of movement, and the oversized jewelry could double as a form of self-defense. However, this style was short-lived, and it didn't last beyond the 90s. By the early 2000s, hip-hop fashion had evolved once again. The new style was a mix of high fashion and streetwear, with rappers like Jay-Z and Kanye West leading the way. They were known for wearing tailored suits and dress shirts with jeans and sneakers. They were also big fans of Italian fashion brands like Gucci and Prada. This new style was a departure from the oversized look of the 90s, and it signified a new era of hip-hop. The music was getting more mainstream, and the fashion was following suit. But this is where things get interesting. As hip-hop fashion became more mainstream, it began to attract the attention of some of the biggest fashion houses in the world. In the late 2000s, designers like Karl Lagerfeld and Miuccia Prada began incorporating hip-hop-inspired elements into their collections. Lagerfeld even designed a limited edition run of Adidas sneakers. But this isn't just about appreciating another culture. These designers were literally taking pieces of clothing and re-releasing them as their own designs. And as you can guess, they were making a lot of money in the process. This brings us to where we are today. Hip-hop fashion is bigger than ever. Rappers are some of the most fashionable people in the world, and their styles are emulated by millions. But it's important to remember that this wasn't always the case. Hip-hop fashion has a rich history that dates back to the 70s and 80s. It's a history that's filled with struggle, creativity, and innovation. From the iconic looks of Run DMC to the oversized style of the 90s, hip-hop fashion has come a long way. But it's important to remember that this journey hasn't always been easy. Many hip-hop artists have had to fight for their right to express themselves and their culture through fashion. They faced criticism, ridicule, and even violence. But they persevered and they've changed the world for the better. Today, hip-hop fashion is a major part of the fashion industry. Designers are taking cues from hip-hop style and incorporating them into their collections. Rappers are becoming fashion icons and their styles are being emulated by millions. But it's important to remember that this wasn't always the case. Hip-hop fashion has a rich history that dates back to the 70s and 80s. It's a history that's filled with struggle, creativity, and innovation. From the iconic looks of Run DMC to the oversized style of the 90s, hip-hop fashion has come a long way. But it's important to remember that this journey hasn't always been easy. Many hip-hop artists have had to fight for their right to express themselves and their culture through fashion. They've faced criticism, ridicule, and even violence. But they persevered and they've changed the world for the better. Today, hip-hop fashion is a major part of the fashion industry. Designers are taking cues from hip-hop style and incorporating them into their collections. Rappers are becoming fashion icons and their styles are being emulated by millions. But it's important to remember that this wasn't always the case. One of the most successful rapper-led fashion lines is Rocawear. Founded by Damon Dash in 1996, the brand was a cultural phenomenon that captured the essence of hip-hop style in the 90s and early 2000s. Its signature baggy jeans and oversized hoodies became a staple of hip-hop fashion, and the brand's logo, a stylizer with a crown, was a symbol of hip-hop culture. Another fashion empire built by rapper is Yeezy. Founded by Kanye West in 2015, the brand has taken a different approach to hip-hop fashion, combining West's eccentric style with high-fashion elements. Yeezy has released some of the most coveted sneakers of all time, and its apparel line has become a fan favorite. These are just two examples of how rappers are using their influence and creativity to build successful fashion brands. They're not just dressing well, they're creating their own style empires. And as long as hip-hop culture continues to evolve, so will its fashion. So what do you think? Is hip-hop fashion a form of self-expression, or is it cultural appropriation? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this episode of our channel. If you liked it, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Until next time, stay fresh.